Hey, so today is February 17th, 2026. I want to talk about experiences I've had in the past socially, much of which did not turn out well for me. And, it was my first few times putting myself out there and just being around people and talking to people in social settings. I've been isolated for most of my life, ever since, I want to say, middle school. But I never truly had real friends, And so I've learned to be more forgiving to myself about how these experiences played out for me. But nonetheless, it did a huge number on my self-esteem. And it was not at all how I wanted these situations to turn out. I didn't want to be like an awkward, bumbling mess and make people around me uncomfortable, uneasy, unintentionally. That was never what I imagined, never what I wanted. I thought that, like, when I was growing up, when I was a teenager, that, eventually I would find my people and, things will just kind of fall into place. But that never happened. And here I am, almost 27 years old, and I have nothing to show for anything. All I can think about are how these experiences turned out. And it prevents me from, just putting myself out there again. I haven't really done that in years. Most of these experiences happened 3-4 years ago at this point. And so, I've kind of just been holed up in my room ever since, and working and going to the gym. That's it. So, I'm not sure where to start. It's like, I don't want to be too long-winded or get into the nitty-gritty of the details. I guess I'll start with my first time being at a bar. I was invited out by a couple coworkers. Both of them were girls. So it was me and them two. For someone like me who, up to that point, the last time I ever hung out with someone was probably like when I was 15, and I think it was like a birthday party. I remember that not going well for me. I remember most of the kids there, I didn't know who they were, and I was just kind of in the corner, just not really saying much. So, this was basically like plunging myself into the Atlantic Ocean. Like not just the deep end of the pool, I'm talking like an ocean. Yeah, leading up to the night, I was super nervous. I didn't know how it was going to go, how I was going to handle myself. So I tried my very best to keep my composure. I knew I couldn't tell my parents where I was going, because my parents, and by extension my entire family, are very conservative and religious. And so, my mom would not let me go to a bar, even though it's ridiculous because I was already 22 years old by that point. Anyways, so, night of, I arrive at her house, and, they're already, the two of them kind of come stumbling out of the front door, and they've already had a bit to drink and we're already toking. And so we sit in their car and they break out the bong and they start passing it around. I had my first bong hit, which I guess was a cool experience. But it was shortly after that, things just went downhill, rapidly downhill. I remember we were having a few shots, a little bit to drink before we went. I was just slamming back those drinks. I had no control, no pace whatsoever. When we got to the bar, they ordered this big jug that we were all drinking out of. And I was just like, again, slamming it back. So you can see where this is going. Like, I was crashing and burning in no time. And you combine that with the anxiety that I had. Yeah, it quickly turned south. And I remember I was just sitting at the table. So like, we were sitting at a round table and they were both sitting across from me on each side. And I remember there would be minutes that go by without any of us saying a word. Like, I would just be sitting there with my head down, like just trying to weather the inebriation and high that I was experiencing simultaneously. I threw up twice in the bathroom. I remember the second time, like there was like puke coming out of my nostrils. It was horrible. It was really bad. And to top it all off, my mom, she was blowing up my phone, furiously texting me, demanding that I come back home or else she would call the cops. So the walk back from the bar, so that went on for close to 4 hours, I think. For me, it was 3 hours. I can't remember. I remember the walk back to her house, super awkward. And I had to tell them, like, I have to go home. Like, my mom, she wants me back. And they were like, no, you cannot drive. We are not gonna let you drive. It's like, no, I have to. So, I waited for the intoxication to wear off a bit more until I, was finally able to just feel comfortable enough driving back home. But, I was still under the influence, and that's not something I'm proud of, but it was a very tough situation that I was in, which left me with very little choice. And it's really unfortunate, but yeah. In the conversations that we were having at the bar, I guess like there's a couple jokes that I made here and there. They weren't really jokes, they were just like, quips that I made that they were laughing a bit, but much of it was just me sitting there quiet, and there'd be minutes that go by without them saying a word. It was super, super awkward, really awkward. It was awful. And I remember just in the aftermath, once everything was over, I just was reeling from it. I thought they would never want anything to do with me again, like that I totally damaged my reputation. But I continued to work with them. Believe it or not, she did invite me out again. She didn't really invite me out. She just sort of like, yeah, you can come if you want to. That's what she said. The second time went a little bit better. Like, it wasn't as bad. So keep in mind, most of these experiences involved coworkers, and for some of it, there's not a whole lot to say. Like, it was nothing too eventful. I mean, I remember this one time I was invited out to a local fair that was happening in the town square near me, and it was me and a group of people from work. And yeah, I remember there's not much that happened, but it was like I was just kind of hovering around, not really saying much at all. I didn't really know how to insert myself into the conversations they were having. And yeah, I could tell like they were just kind of like side-eyeing each other and, not really comfortable around me, you know? So I remember that. I remember this one time I was invited out by 2 coworkers just to hang out with them. And that went horribly. I remember that. Again, like, it wasn't too eventful, but like I visibly remember like just how uncomfortable they were around me, because I just was kind of sitting there not saying much at all because I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to carry a conversation with them. And like, they were just like uneasy around me, you know, like kind of just like looking at each other like, yeah, he's not really talking. I remember we went to McDonald's and I was trying to, you know, lighten up the mood by showing them a couple memes on my phone. They didn't get some of them, and like they were like pretending to laugh. Ugh, it was bad. It was really, really bad. Yeah, I remember after that, like I felt like garbage, you know? I knew, like, just, like, in the moment, like, I knew, like, just how creeped out they were by me. I remember this one time I went to a nightclub. This was on Halloween night in 2022. I would have been 23. I had been to a nightclub a couple times prior to that. Again, it was all solo. It was all by myself. The very first time I ever went to a club, nothing happened. I was just kind of standing there, pretending like I was vibing to the music. Meanwhile, most of the music that they play at these like college town nightclubs are the top 40 hits that I listen to at work every day. So it was very hit or miss my first few times being at a nightclub. I think there's like maybe one time I had a little bit of fun. Halloween night 2022. I put on like a wizard hat, and I dressed up a little bit, and I was standing in line. There's like a big lineup to get into this club, and this girl walks up next to me and she starts a conversation with me. She asks me, oh, are you excited? And I tell her, I don't know why I told her this, but I said like, oh yeah, you know, this is my second or third time being at the club. And she asked me, she's like, really? Like, how old are you? So I got insecure in the moment and I lied about my age. I told her I was 21. Meanwhile, I was 23. And I don't know why I did this. But she quickly found out I was lying when she asked me like when my birthday was, and I made up some shit. Told her like a fake birthday. She asked me if I was in school, and I said like, yeah, I think so. I think I'm in school. And she was like, you think so? Like I'm having a hard time understanding you. So like the vibe just quickly like crumbled, and her friend showed up. She wanted me to take a picture of both of them. Yeah, and like just the conversation quickly petered out from there. I remember I saw them in the club a couple times, and she just like kind of gave me stone cold face whenever she would see me. But everybody was with their friends. Like everybody was in groups. I was probably the only person there by myself, alone. And I didn't know what to do. Like I remember I was sitting in the lounge area by myself, just looking down at my phone, and I went up to the dance floor for the last hour, and I bumped into her. I bumped into this girl, and she turned around. She said to me, "I've seen you too many times tonight, Jeff. You're freaking me out." And I didn't hear her at first. I said, "What?" She clears her throat. She says, you're freaking me out. And she walks away. And I remember when I was exiting the club, she was sitting down with her friend and she was like pointing at me, like laughing. And I just kind of like waved at her like, yeah, okay. I remember I don't know why I did this, but I asked for Instagram. And I remember she said to me like, sure, we can be friends. And so I, like, as soon as I left that club, I blocked her. I did her a favor. Yeah, but I felt like a total fucking loser. A total weirdo. I felt incredibly out of place. It was really bad. Yeah, man. There's a couple other experiences I can recall, but again, none of it's too eventful, and it was marred by like a general vibe of awkwardness. I remember me and my parents, we went to get our gun license. We live in Canada, and to have possession of a firearm, you need to have a registered license. I think that's how it should be in the US, if you were to ask me, but whatever. Yeah, it was like a 2-day training process. I remember, I did my test, and I was walking outside the outhouse, one of the outhouses, and there's a couple people standing outside. The one guy asked me, "Oh, what'd you get?" I was like, "Oh, I think I got 88%. He's like, "Nice, man, good job." And I think it might have been his friend, girlfriend, I don't know, but this other girl, she says, "Oh, good job." And I forgot to say thank you to her because I was super tired staying up the previous night studying. Turns out I didn't even need to study because it was multiple choice. So they made it super easy. But yeah, I didn't say thank you to her, and she then said, "Okay, well, it was nice meeting you." I was like, whoa, like I didn't mean to come across that way at all. I didn't realize I was being rude. So, I attempted to salvage it. I was looking for my parents. Turns out they were sitting in the car waiting for me. So I walked back outside, and I attempted to start just a mini conversation with her. But it went horribly. I remember I wasn't able to just formulate a proper sentence. Like I was so tired. My voice was like cracking, and she was like trying to make out what I was saying to her. Like she was visibly uncomfortable halfway into that conversation. And she was like just slowly like looking down at her phone like, okay. I was like, oh God. So I totally messed that up. It was really bad. Like she probably thought I was like I had like a mental disability or something. And yeah, I mean, there's interactions that I've had throughout the last couple of years which didn't turn out well, that were awkward. So yeah, man, I mean, I think that's it. I think I've gone over most of those experiences, but yeah, I mean, that's my sad life. And I guess I felt compelled to make this video because I'm going to a concert tomorrow. I'm seeing Nine Inch Nails live, and this will be my first time just putting myself out there in years. Like the last time I did was in 2023 when I was 24. Now I'm almost 27. So I'm just hoping for the best. I'm hoping it won't be awkward. I'm hoping I can just have a good time, and my parents won't be suspicious and be wondering where I am and blow up my phone. Like, These experiences have given me a lot of trauma, and it's been really hard to just recover from it. So, if nothing else, it was through these experiences I learned a lot about myself, how to carry myself, what not to do. I've long suspected that I might be on the spectrum, that I might have ADHD. It's possible. I think the bigger issue, though, is my isolation. The fact that I've never truly developed my social skills. I need to do that. And the only way I'm going to do that is by consistently talking to people, being around people, putting myself out there. I've only had these few experiences sprinkled throughout the last 5-ish years, most of which were not positive, and I've allowed it to just hold me back by endlessly ruminating on the mistakes that I've made, the fuck-ups, the interactions that I messed up, the times that I've made people unintentionally uncomfortable, that I've accidentally creeped them out because I didn't know how to carry a conversation. I didn't know how to give off the right vibes. It was never, like, I never wanted these situations to turn out that way. But they did. And in all honesty, it was inevitable because, I've never been normal. I've never had friends. I've never had the experiences that most people have growing up. So, I'm still very much socially inexperienced, and I'm grateful to still be young and I can turn things around, but I need to start taking action. And if you've made it to the end of this video, I thank you. Hopefully you can relate to some of it. If you are in a similar position, just know that you're not alone. I can't tell you when it will get better, but we need to take a more active role in our lives. Nothing's going to fall in our laps. Nothing is going to come from waiting and wishing for things to change and get better. You need to want to change. You need to power through the bad experiences. I didn't do that. I allowed the bad experiences to have power over me, the trauma of the past to weigh me down, and I've just remained frozen in a stasis ever since. And that's no life to live. We're not meant to be alone, to be isolated, to have no one in our lives. I mean, I have my parents, but that's it. I'm grateful for them, but it comes at the expense of my own independence, my own agency. But life isn't meant to be lived in a single room. I've spent 95% of my life in here, and that's no life to live. Life is far more meaningful when you share it with other people. And I've never found those people. And I'm hoping I will someday. But I'm never going to find them in here. Unless, I don't know, I make online friends, but that's not really what I want. But, yeah, that's about it.